bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
It is Dallas Tuesday, Dallas week here on Birds 365 and in the Delaware Valley. I know we got days to talk about Dallas, and we will do so plenty over the next several. But here also on NFL trade deadline day, you got the Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald. Eagles made a couple of moves yesterday that J Mac and I are going to break down. But first things first, Johnny Mac, what's it going to be like at the NovaCare complex today? A lot of moving parts that you don't always get on a Tuesday, but some added excitement / emphasis put on today, correct?
Well, yeah, from the perspective of obviously it's the trade deadline. Your GM is Howie Roseman in this town, so it's always probably a little bit more impetus of something getting done than most cities. But remember in the past how he's done stuff before the deadline. He's already done that this year. We've not done anything at the deadline. So, but he's always looking. He's always trying to improve, and that's where he sort of laps the rest of the field, so to speak. So, big day for him in the organization as a whole. But for the coaching staff and everybody else, it's business as usual. It's coordinator day. All those guys are going to speak. Sean Desai, Brian Johnson, Michael Clay. So from their perspective, not much changes at all. But obviously, Howie's going to have the phone attached to the ear today, and we'll see if he can get something done on top of what he already has. But, this is arguably already the best team in the NFL. So, splashes. I mean, there's been whispers about Patrick Surtain. I can tell you they love the player, but I mean, damn it, you're talking about 2 first-round picks. Plus, I don't know if that's something that's doable at this stage of the game. So if something does happen, I think it would be more of a less splashy move.
What is Contavious Street doing today?
Contavious Street's biggest deal of the day, all due respect to James Harden. The Eagles might have gotten more back. I'm joking. Yeah. Contavious Street's on his way to Atlanta. Obviously, Eagles essentially for future draft positioning. They kind of did the flip of draft picks, but a year down the road. So they're getting a 6th-round pick this year. If Street plays, and giving up a 7th-round pick in 2025, getting a pick back in 2024. He's got to play in 6 games, though. The interesting, he had his best year in New Orleans, where Ryan Nielsen was the co-defensive coordinator. He's now the DC in Atlanta. So there's the impetus to get him there. And they lost Grady Jarrett over the weekend with a torn ACL. So they needed some help. And from the Eagles' perspective, it's good news because, and I'd already heard that Jalen Carter's MRI came back well. So if it didn't come back well, they're probably not trading Kentavious Street. So it's good news from the Eagles' perspective. Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me that they moved and tried to get some of those late round picks at least back in the mix.
Right. It doesn't hurt. It's not a big deal. I think you call him a couple times an NFL player. That's what Kentavious Street is. He's not a needle mover. He's not a star, but he's a solid rotational NFL player. And the Falcons were in need of one with the Jarrett injury coming down. So made sense. It's not anything that you're going to go, oh my God, Howie Roseman taking another team to the clinic. No, not really. It's a trade that could help both teams. I think Falcons will benefit from him just to give him some defensive tackle depth. And yeah, any extra you can put in your bag of tricks leading up to the trade deadline to potentially make a move is a good thing. Again, not going to swing the needle all that much, but Kentavious Street gave him a solid 8 games while he was here, and he suited up every single game, right? We were wondering
if he played all 8 games. He, I thought he got over his career Eagles high, but he missed it by 1 snap. So he played 22 snaps against Washington because Davis and Carter were banged up. He actually played 23 against the Jets. I believe that's the game Carter missed. So that's why he played so much in that game. And yeah, he's a solid player. I think it's a good move for the Falcons because I said their DC knows him, had success with him, and they lost a big time. Maybe their best defensive player. So you got to do something. But yeah, I mean, it's not a needle mover certainly, but it makes a lot of sense because he's a 1-year guy and just here and get something for him.
And, oh, by the way, if you just look at Eagles roster and the guys that have been active every single week, Moro Ojomo has not played. Has he been active 1 game, maybe 2 out of the 7? He's on that DMP coaching decision list.
That's part of it too. And, that's a rookie player they like. And maybe they think he's ready to take on that limited role, get a few more snaps.
Right.
They got Thomas Booker on the practice squad. They got Noah Ellis on the practice squad. So they got a bunch of bodies, and they always have a bunch of bodies on the defensive front, as we always talk about, because that's how they build the team. And yeah, I mean, Moro's gotten basically almost half a season to learn. Typically when nobody's banged up, Street would get 5 to 10 reps. They think he can handle 5 to 10 reps.
That's why the trade makes a lot of sense. And right, it gives them some capital, not a lot more capital, but any addition to your draft capital helps if you're going to do something again today before 4:00. Trade deadline is 4:00. And the other indication that on a move yesterday that made you believe how he's not done yet. He's going to try. Doesn't mean he's going to get something done, but he's not up in his office going, yeah, don't take my calls. I'm going out to lunch. No, he'll be manning the phones right up until 4:00. They redid Kevin Byard's deal. And this is standard operating procedure in the league. If you can move money around, you do it. If you need the cap space, he's under contract next year for $14 million. I'll put the number at about 99% sure that he's not coming back on the current contract he has. Would you agree, Johnny Mac? It's going to be one
from both sides because that number's not guaranteed. So he's not going to want to come back, believe it or not. Generally you want, that's what happened with Darius Slay this year. Technically he was under contract, but it was the last year of his deal. The money wasn't guaranteed. So both sides want to get something done. And generally at that stage, you either move on if you want to move on, or you work out some kind of extension where the player gets guaranteed money up front. And Howie's very good at that, obviously, and Jake Rosenberg, and you lighten it as much as possible to get more financial flexibility by extending the years. And the Eagles are big on the voidable years trick. So Yeah, they'll if Kevin plays well down the stretch, yeah, they'll rework his deal, give him some guaranteed money, extend the years, and probably put some voidable years on top of it as well. So that's how that will shake
And
out.
he's already got voidable years from his previous deal with
Yeah.
the Titans, so he'll be the king of voidable years if the Eagles decide to go
Hey,
down.
everybody is now. Everybody copycat league. Everybody's doing voidable years now. Well, the
Right.
smart teams.
So Byard could be one of those unique players that gets voidable years from two different teams, but it gives them flexibility. They cleared up about $700,000 just for the cap this year alone. Now, I feel the need to always explain this when this is the case. They need to work that deal out with him going forward. Otherwise, it's just going to be dead money because he's not going to be here. And you move money forward into a future year. You prefer not to have big gaping numbers of dead money cap on your hit going forward. But they believe it tells you that they're going to work hard to try and keep Byard because that will lessen dead cap money if he's back here again next year. But if they think they needed the extra 700,000 just to give him flexibility going into the day, that to me means Howie's still looking, Howie's still shopping, that he's not necessarily done at this stage.
Well, that to me is always a redundancy. When people say, "How he's still looking?" He's always looking. I mean, that's baked into it. He's that guy.
You won't be looking at 5 o'clock today. It's
Well,
done.
no, the
There's a
rules.
deadline that tells you when you can look till.
The rules prevent that. But when things are in play, he's looking always. In other words, he doesn't stay. All right, I acquired Robert Quinn last year before the trade line, and I'm done. He was still talking to people. Did he get anything done? No. But yeah, I mean that's one of my things with people who throw out, the trade rumors and they go, and the Eagles at the end, because yeah, he checks in on everybody and everything. And that's what he should do. That's his job. Other GMs should take note of that. That's your job. You should always be looking. And so many do literally say, "Oh no, we're not looking. We're fine. We're good. We're not looking to trade anybody. We're not." I mean, what are you doing? That's not your job,
Including this week's opponent. I told you this last week. Jerry Jones on the record saying, "Oh, we won't be making any calls. We think we've got a good enough team here now.
Doesn't make any sense.
Somewhere to call us. We're not going to shut off our phones, but it's just his brashness and trying to be a little cocky. And if he thinks confidence will breed to his players because he's saying he's not looking to trade anybody, okay, fine, Jerry. We know that you could use an upgrade. I said last week I thought they could use Byard more as much as the Eagles could have used Byard because their safeties have played lousy football all year long, and how he's out there upgrading the roster while Jerry's beating his chest, sitting a game behind the Eagles and stand go, "Oh no, we're good. We don't need to be making calls at this stage." Yeah, you do, Jerry. Get with the program. So that is one of the teams, in addition certainly to the Eagles, that I'll be watching today, leading up to 4 o'clock. You think the Cowboys will get something done? Yeah, Jerry's just he's beating his chest a little bit, but you don't actually believe that they're just going to sit on their hands and
I believe they're going to sit on their hands. That's what they typically do. They're not a big trading team for whatever reason, because I guess because of their reputation, their money. People act like the Cowboys. They're actually very conservative in their history as far as making moves and doing things like that. So I would say if I'm a betting man, yeah, I would always say the Cowboys are going to sit on their hands. Now that doesn't mean they can never make a deal. They've never made a deal or anything like that, but history says they're very conservative compared to other teams. And that's been the case really for many, many years, despite this weird reputation, I guess, because he's got so much money and they have so much money. People assume they do all these crazy things. They really don't. They're pretty conservative by NFL standards.
No, I don't. I hope it stays the same for the Eagles' sake this week with the Cowboys coming to town, because they're only one game back. This is, John, it ends up, this becomes a really big game for a lot of different reasons. The biggest one of which, you got to check the standings, and the Cowboys are only one game back in the loss column. If they win, not only do they pick up that game, but they also have a tiebreaker advantage, and the Eagles have to go to Dallas, where the Cowboys, I believe, have won 11 in a row over last year into this year. They've got the longest home winning streak in the National Football League. Yeah, the way that the schedule has played itself out, despite the fact that the Eagles are 7-1, have the best record in the National Football League, they still got a divisional fight on their hands with the Cowboys coming to town here in week number 9.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, the Eagles can handle their own business. Not in a lot of ways. They can handle their own business against the Cowboys. The team I'm concerned about played last night. And the reason I'm concerned about them is, A, they're a good team, but I'm talking about the Detroit Lions. But they play in a bad division that just got worse this weekend. Because the Vikings are really the only other relevant team in that division, and they I should say, and they lost their starting quarterback, and the Lions still got to play him twice.
Yep, they still got him twice.
I think they have Chicago twice, and I think they have Green Bay once more, but it's at home. So what I'm trying to say is they're going to pile up wins, Jody. And they might not be the best team, but they're going to pile up wins. So if you don't keep piling up wins, and all of a sudden you lose that first round bye, that number 1 seed. And I know a lot of people look, the Lions' history is the Lions' history. And even if the Eagles have to go to Detroit, people are going to be very confident they're going to win the game because of that history. But that's a good football team. And I know they lost to Baltimore, and that's, everybody has hiccups, and that was an ugly performance. But, just make note of the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, their schedule the rest of the way is significantly easier than the Eagles, but there is one big game left on the Lions schedule, and that would be the Cowboys. And those are two teams that are, at the moment, coming up behind the Eagles. They both can't win that game. Somebody's got to win that one. Somebody's got to lose that one. So that is one week where the Eagles will be okay, because they know someone's taking another L from behind. All right, Johnny Mac, here with you on Birds 365. Got one of our favorites, Tommy Lawler from EaglesBlitz.com. I've been reading his stuff all week. He's excited. He's an old-time Eagle reporter, so he knows the bad blood between the Eagles and the Cowboys gets renewed this week. Tommy Lawler from EaglesBlitz.com joins us next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up, and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed the most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Dallas Tuesday here on Birds 365. Oh, we're going to talk about the Cowboys with our next guest, but I also want to get his thoughts on the Eagles' win on Sunday against the Commanders down in D.C. Tommy Lawler writes an outstanding column for his website, Eagles, IGGLES, Blitz.com, and stays on top of the Birds. And if you check out his website, you'll get his weekly insights. What was your main insight after the 38-31 win against the Commanders on Sunday, Tommy?
Thank God the Eagles don't have to play Washington for another year. Mm-hmm. That team just gives the Eagles fits the last couple of years. So you're glad you won those two games. You got them in the rearview mirror. The offense looked really good. You know, Jalen Hurts had a terrific game, really threw the ball well, and just the passing game really clicked. But yeah, there were some issues. The run game wasn't great. And then the defense obviously had a rough day. You don't want to give up 472 yards and 31 points to Sam Howell. That's very discouraging.
Yeah, it is but I kind of brought up, Tommy, 1 week you shut down Tua and the Miami Dolphins who are on this historic pace. And the next week you can't deal with Sam Howell and the Commanders. Jim Schwartz would always tell me games have personalities. Can you just chalk it up to that? Sometimes games are shootouts. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes you're going to have games like this. And when you find a way to persevere and win these games, that's a positive.
Well, there is some truth to that. But this is the third game that the Eagles have faced an Eric Bieniemy led offense. 31 offensive points in the Super Bowl, 31 points in week 4, and then 31 points on Sunday. That's not personality. That
was a good game plan. I said that from
that's
Eric
the
Bieniemy.
ability to put together a small ball game plan and to execute it well. We saw it in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes didn't throw for 200 yards in the Super Bowl.
No,
he
182,
threw for 182,
I believe,
and they ran for 158. And with Washington the Dolphins wanted chunk plays. The Eagles do that, and they played accordingly. Washington comes in, and if you're willing to play small ball, it's really hard to stop it because your quarterback's getting the ball out quickly. That negates your pass rush. You can have Hassan Reddick and Joshua flying off the edge. Ball's gone in 1.8 seconds. There's nothing you can do about it. You can have Reggie White, Lawrence Taylor, and whoever else you want. They're not getting to the quarterback in 1.8 seconds. So if the quarterback's getting the ball out quickly, and basically what it is, the offense has to be willing to take 3 and 4 yard plays and march methodically and slowly down the field. And when they're willing to do that, they can have success. The Eagles have to figure out more of a counter for that. They got lucky. The one turnover they had was just a bad throw from Sam Howell. And then on that one drive, there were 2 drops. Amazingly by Terry McMullen.
Yeah, I know that was you're getting a break there. I mean, he's typically the Eagles killer, and he's dropping 2 footballs. So that was
right after he got lit up by Sidney Brown, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of when you're playing a team that plays small ball, you've got to make them pay. And if you think about what the Eagles did against the Dolphins, think of all those times that Miami caught a pass. They were swarmed on by Eagles tacklers. There were some physical hits. The Eagles played that really well against Washington. When the ball goes to James Bradbury's side, love James, but he's just not a good tackler. He's not a good hitter. So you get a free pass there, and they're wanting the flying to the football and the hits, and it just wasn't a good showing by the back seven on Sunday.
And you mentioned what they did the week before against the Dolphins. Now, they didn't do it on every single play, but they did it sporadically, and I thought it worked very well, except you don't do it to the cheater because he'll make you pay real big. They actually got up and played some in your face man-to-man and checked the wide receivers coming off the line of scrimmage, which made Tua not be able to go 1.8 seconds and then deliver. I don't know that they did that on one player in one play against Washington this past. It was all backup. I'm interested to see what Sean Desai has to say today, because one of the things I've been giving Sean Desai credit for up to this past Sunday's game was he at least has shown some flexibility. He's got his general core tenets, Sirianni's tenets, but he's willing to take a wrinkle every once in a while and do things a little differently. Last week against the Commanders, it just looked like, all right, here's our defense, and we're playing it, and we're not going to react at all to the success that the opposition is having. I thought he had a lousy game plan. The Eagle players did not play well, but I thought Sean Desai did a lousy job as well. How about you?
It's hard to say. They tried blitzing. It just didn't work. Sam Howell lit the blitz up. Paul Domowitch had the stats on Twitter yesterday. Yeah. And I forget what they were, but he really, and the blitzers just weren't getting home. They were getting some pressure late, but Howell, again, was getting the ball out. And the game plan, I haven't gone back to rewatch the game, study it, take a look at it thoroughly. It didn't look like a great game plan, to be sure. So here's the problem. Sean Desai comes from the Vic Fangio school, which says we don't want to give up chunk plays. Washington comes in and says, that's great. We're not going to throw chunk plays. What do you do when they do what you want to do? Then it's up to you to really come in and figure out a way to try to take that away from them. And he didn't have a lot of answers, but let's be honest. The players didn't execute well. Reed Blankenship gave up the touchdown to Logan Thomas, and he just had bad leverage. You don't let the tight end inside of you. You have to play inside leverage there. If not, it's just 7-on-7 pitch and catch. Then Reed Blankenship didn't get over on McLaurin's TD. You've got to get depth on that. You don't let that. And Reed Blankenship had talked about those plays in the post game. He knows he made mistakes. So a lot of it's on the players, but Sean Desai would be the first one to tell you he didn't do a good enough job. Obviously, he did try to do some different things. They just, whatever buttons he was pushing were not working until Sam Howell magically came down to reality in the second half. And because listen, Jim Johnson was the first coach I ever heard talk about this. He said he didn't mind offenses playing small ball. That's what he wanted offenses to do, because he said at some point you're going to have a holding call, a tackle for loss, a drop pass, a bad throw, and it becomes 2nd and 10, 2nd and 9, 3rd and 12, and that's when we get you into a favorable situation. We can attack then, get you off the field. Well, Sam Howell started 16 out of 17. At that, I quit keeping point. He might have stayed super hot the next couple of passes. But 16 out of 17. If you were doing a 7-on-7 drill in August, 16 out of 17 would be good. The guy was just making good reads, quick throws, accurate throws, and his players were catching it. And if that happens, it's just tough to stop. What we saw in the second half is also those throws. He missed on a couple of throws. We got them chlorine drops, and that proved to be really the difference in the game.
Yeah, well, I think so many times a lot of fans don't give credit to the other team. As I mentioned with Eric Bieniemy, I thought it was a hell of a game plan. And I think Sam Howell played pretty well overall. But to your point, Tommy, the numbers were they blitzed 14 times, 14 out of 53, which is 26%, typically more than they do. It was just over 30% on the first game. But Howell was killing it. He was 12 of 14 for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns against the blitz. Now, and here's the important part. The Eagles blitzed on 9 of Washington's first 18 pass plays, and he was killing it. And then there's the tweak. Jody and I were talking. I hate the word adjustment. I think a lot of people don't. That was the tweak. All right, it wasn't working. Sean Desai pulled back. He only blitzed 5 more times the rest of the game. There's the tweak. So
Right.
he's making changes based on what's happening on the field. Jonathan Gannon used to do it as well, believe it or not, Eagles fans. And by the way, Kenny Gainwell at halftime again proves halftime adjustments is my personal peeve because so many coaches tell me it's such bullshit. Peyton Manning tells me, hey, we go in there, we take a leak, we have an orange slice, and we go back to the field. And that's the smartest, quarterback in the past generation. Kenny Gainwell's out there fighting with fans at halftime. They're not making these grandiose adjustments at halftime, but they are tweaking things on the field, and they did. But Washington just played well. That's why I give credit to the perseverance factor. And you got to win this way one week. You got to win this way the next week. And the Eagles have done that better than anybody else, Tommy.
And I will say, when you talked earlier about Jim Schwartz and games having personalities, the one angle where that does come into play. So the Eagles faced Washington twice. The week before the first game, Buffalo beat them 40-3, humiliated Washington.
Yeah.
Sam Howell was sacked 9 times. It was a dreadful beatdown. Washington really came back and played against the Eagles like their lives depended on it. Sam Howell got the ball out quickly. The offensive lineman held blocks a half second longer. They executed well. They played with a real sense of urgency. They still lost, but you saw a way different. That was Washington's best game of the year at that point. Last week, Washington loses to a Giants team that you could tell Washington thought they were going to win that game. And not only did they lose, they got manhandled. The score was, I think, 14-9 or whatever it was. It was close.
Yeah.
But Washington got physically dominated. Again, they go back, they say, listen, we got embarrassed. We got to play with a sense of urgency. We got to get the ball out quickly. Both times before the Eagles come to town, they're having this game where their nose is rubbed in it, and those guys say, all right, we got to have players-only meetings. We got to do this. We got to do that. So they came out and they played with a real edge and a real sense of purpose. If they played the way they played against the Eagles on Sunday, if they played that way against the Giants, they'd have won that game. They didn't. They were, Sam Howell's dropping back, holding the ball, trying to make plays. He wasn't doing that against the Eagles. He dropped back, that foot hit, plants. There's Logan Thomas. I got 4 yards. Let's go. I'll take the 4 yards. He wasn't trying to make plays. He was just doing whatever it takes to move the chains to the next set of downs. And it's tough to sustain that over a season, but it is funny that both times that they faced the Eagles, they were coming off embarrassing defeats that caused them to change the way they played.
Yeah. You get overcorrections in the NFL. When you have a bad game, you overcorrect.
And that's why you never want to play a team when they're coming off a bad loss.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that repeats. We've seen plenty of times in NFL history when teams, they hit rock bottom and they say, we like it down here. But these guys have egos. They don't want to be embarrassed. They get fired up and they say, let's go let's go play better.
Oh, good on the Commanders, and it still didn't equate to a win for them. I said this on Birds 365 yesterday. I disagreed with A.J. Brown. Took exception with something A.J. Brown said a couple of weeks ago. I think it was Johnny Clark. Somebody was talking to him about the fact that he's having this unbelievable year. And he said, I'm kind of like 7-Eleven, always open, which is a cute little line. I like it a lot, but it's not true. He's not always open. Most of the catches he made 8 for 8 the other day. The Commanders actually had decent coverage. He just physically dominates people. He does not allow them, even though they've got pretty good coverage, to keep him from catching the football. There's one thing to get wide open, and that's Tyreek Hill, the other guy you'd probably look at as the best wide receiver in the game right now. He just beats you with pure speed and pretty good running ability and routes and everything else, and good scheme put together by their coach until he ran into the Eagles defense. He's not always open. He's often covered, and it's good for a 25-yard catch, if not a touchdown. He is just a physical beast right now. To me, he is the best wide receiver in the National Football League. Agree or disagree?
I'm still going to go with Tyreek Hill just because I feel like he's a guy that you just have to build your whole defense around. He's just, I've been watching football a long time. I've never seen another player like Tyreek Hill. Deshaun Jackson was the fastest Eagle we've ever seen. I think we'd all agree on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely explosive guy. And yet, I remember when the Patriots played the Eagles in 2011, they had Julian Edelman cover Deshaun Jackson on some plays. And that's when I thought, this is so humiliating that one of the best receivers in Eagles history is being covered by a wide receiver. Belichick really just knew how to mess with your mind and really disrupt you. And Tyreek Hill is just a guy you have to build your whole game plan around. AJ to a certain extent, but Tyreek's just that guy that even after he catches the ball, that's only half the battle. Once the ball's in his hands, you can think you've got him boxed in and you're getting ready to stop him. And he hits that gear that literally only 2 or 3 other people in history of pro football have had. And there's just nothing you can do except watch him run away from you. It's like the Roadrunner, right?
Yeah.
He beat.
They should. They should put beep beep. Yeah, they should put the sound. Yeah, I always talk about when you hear. That's when I know, Tommy. When I hear other players talk about players with awe, that's how people talk about Tyreek.
Because the NFL's full of fast guys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a fast guys league, and they're like, "What the hell? This guy's fast. Everybody's fast." Yeah.
Quez Watkins is fast.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill is fast with a capital F.
Yeah.
And not only that, he's skilled.
Well, that's the thing. I've seen fast receivers, and there are guys who can probably run with Tyreek, but they can't run routes. I've never seen a speed guy be as savvy as he is. He's a tremendous route runner. He tracks the football well. Sometimes you got speed guys who don't catch the football.
We have one here in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
name's Quez Watkins.
Deshaun Jackson, obviously.
Not in the opposition. Oh my God.
Yeah, Jody's obsessed with Quez, but Deshaun could track the football great as well. But I don't think anybody. Randy could track Randy Moss. Randy's another of those guys because I covered Randy for years.
Right.
Other players talk about him with awe. And there's certain guys, Aaron Donald on defense, Lawrence Taylor back in the day. Yeah, there's certain guys. He's in that category. No disrespect to AJ. And AJ would tell you that, by the way. AJ would be the first guy. And to Jody's point, AJ has a sign in his locker that says always open. He knows he's not always open. His point is, even if I'm not open, I'm open because he's gonna get the 50-50 ball. That's his whole point. Even when he's not open, he's open, and he's having a phenomenal run. But yeah, if you push me, I'm gonna take Tyreek just because he's generational. But AJ's having a run. Nobody else has ever done it before. That's all you got to say.
Right.
Nobody else has ever done it before.
Here's the way. Let's be political. AJ's the best receiver in the NFC. Tyreek's the best in the AFC. How about that?
Yeah.
They're both amazing players. And I got to tell you, I love AJ Brown because I love physical receivers. I want big guys who catch the ball, work the middle. I loved Irving Fryer going back to the old days. I love guys that are physical and tough. Anquan Bolden, Deebo Samuel. And so for the Eagles to have AJ Brown, who's the biggest, toughest guy there is, and can catch the ball and shed tacklers and runs over guys. I love it. He's an awesome player. And you're exactly right. That's the mentality he's got. Even if I'm not open, I'm still open. And that's a great outlet for Jalen Hurts to have, because there may be a play where the corner reads the route right, and Jalen says, well, I'm under pressure. I need to put the ball over somewhere, and let's see if my guy can make a play. That catch on Sunday, I'm sitting here watching it, and I'm like, there's no way he caught that ball. There's no way. And then they showed a replay, and you're like, holy crap,
by the way, he did that. He did that in practice during the week.
Right.
He made the exact same play, and he was talking about it. And I'm like, they're probably just, embellishing him, because that was a hell of a catch, as you mentioned. But then, AJ talked first after the game. Then Nick came in. They had not talked. And Nick said the same thing. He made the exact same play in practice. And a bunch of players said the exact same thing. Yeah, he's phenomenal. I mean, when they acquired him, I said he was the final piece of the puzzle on offense because everything fit into place when he got here. But I didn't know he was this good. I
Tennessee
remember
didn't
Joey.
either. They wouldn't have traded him.
Yeah. I mean, he's dominant. He's dominant. Yeah.
Tommy, I need you to be very honest with me here. I trust you, buddy, and I'd go back and look up your posts and see if you're giving me the business, but I do trust you. Were you one of those who said Kenny Gainwell had a great playoff run for the Eagles last year? Or I am hoping you were not one, but I need you to admit to it if you did. Were you one of those who bought in and oversold Kenny Gainwell at the end of last season?
I think it talks about how well he played in the playoffs because he did. But I think I've added context to that, part of that was that he lit up a bad Giants team. And so the stats look great overall, but if you really kind of go inside them, it's like, it's not as impressive because the Giants just at a certain point in that game, the Giants were just trying to get out of there. They could just tell that game was over. So I'm not one that said
that the coin flip.
I was trying to give him at least to the middle of the first quarter. But if you, I'm not one of those people who looked at the playoffs and said, "Oh, this has to be the guy you build the offense around." I didn't fall into that because everyone, when I go to Pro Football Reference on a freaking daily basis. That website is just gold to me. And I would go and I would look at Gainwell, and you'd see the numbers in the Giants game were great. The numbers in the San Francisco game were okay. And then in the Super Bowl, he was quiet, if I remember right.
Exactly.
And so you sit there and say, well, yeah, the Giants game was nice. But again, the Giants they had no linebackers that were worth a damn. And they just, at a certain point in that game, they were just ready to go home. So I didn't want to overrate that performance.
I'm just hoping that Nick Sirianni is watching at this stage because I'm getting tired of saying it. I just had to have somebody else say it. Yeah, he had a good playoff game, not a good playoff run. One against the Giants. He was very good against the Giants. Not that great against San Francisco in the Super Bowl. If Miles Sanders doesn't bounce the first play outside and hurt himself and take a loss, then you wouldn't have had to give it to Kenny Gainwell. Oh, by the way, he wasn't all that good running the ball in the Super Bowl either. He's certainly the second best running back on the field. Isaiah Pacheco was a guy who had a legitimate big game in the Super Bowl running the football. What is it about and the coach is continuing to come to Kenny Gainwell's defense? They got to keep trusting him. If every time somebody made a mistake, we moved off a player, we'd have no players left to play with. What is it about Kenny Gainwell that he just wants to go to the wall to defend this guy?
Well, he was right to defend him because it is true. You have to allow guys to make mistakes. Now, listen, have they played him too much in the red zone this year? Absolutely. There's no question. They like Kenny because he's a good pass blocker, a legitimately good pass blocker. He's a good receiver. He does the little things well. He generally holds on to the football. That's what made Sunday so discouraging. And they like him in the red zone because he's a north-south runner. You hand him the ball, he doesn't read, he attacks. And one of the downsides to DeAndre Swift, DeAndre likes to read and see where the hole is and then hit it. In the goal line area, because you've got such a condensed space, the safeties are there aren't the natural gaps. You basically have to get the football and go running. You can't really do a lot of reading. Well, Swift is not going to be as effective. Gainwell last year was an effective goal line runner. This year, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the blocking, if it's Gainwell, if it's just one of those years, but it's just not happening for him. He's the runs are not there. And so it feels like they need to switch that up, try Boston Scott, or God forbid, play Rashad Penny. Let's see what he can do. But Gainwell in the red zone, that is something that coaches need to stop because it's he had a touchdown, a week ago on a nice play, but
yeah, that touchdown was a nice run.
It was absolutely,
yeah.
And that's why you always get.
You're right. By the way, I'm glad you brought that up, Tommy, because I've been having this argument since the days of Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith, where I would say Emmitt Smith is a better running back than Barry Sanders, but Barry Sanders is the best runner I've ever seen. Now, people talk about Gale Sayers, but Wayne Fontes used to get a lot of crap back in those days because Barry would make a great play, get the Lions in the red zone, and they take him out, and he'd get killed for it. Well, he took him out because of just what Tommy said. If you start tap dancing, and he was the king of tap dance, and then sometimes he turned that tap dance into an 80-yard run when you're back at your own 20. But when you're inside in that condensed area, the last thing you want to do is tap dance around. So they would take him out, and they would have red zone runners. Whereas Emmett was, the king of the touchdown. Bang, north, south. And obviously those Cowboy teams were dominant. But boy, you're gonna I still haven't convinced anyone of that argument, Tommy. So I'm glad you said that. There's a different sort of mentality you have to have in the red zone. You got to hit the hole, no dancing whatsoever. And the Eagles trust Kenny Gainwell. And I've been telling people since training camp, and they yell at me, and it's not my fault. I didn't make him trust him. But I do think it's kind of misconstrued what Nick says, because he compared him to Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, I think. Don't bring those two names up. Just explain that he does things that other backs on the roster don't do. That's what Nick should do, because the minute you bring up a name, and I did it yesterday, I brought up Peyton Manning getting the football out of his hands, and Jody said, "You're comparing Peyton Manning to Sam Howell." No, I wasn't. I said, you can't sack Peyton Manning.
Use them in the same sentence. You're
That's
comparing
what I said. You use somebody in the same sentence, and people say, all right, that's it. No, Peyton Manning got the football. You knew going into a game against Peyton Manning, you weren't going to sack the quarterback. And if you sacked him 3 times, you had a hell of a day from a pass rush, because the ball was coming out on time. Sometimes that happens, but when you bring up great players like Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, and then say Kenny Gainwell, yeah, you're gonna take some heat. Yeah. And that's what Nick did. That was the mistake. But he's their best pass protector. He's their best pass protector. He's their best north-south runner. That's why he plays in the red zone.
Right. Coaches have a weird code where there's certain things they like in players. They like players that are durable and tough. They like players that are smart. They like players that practice well. You remember years ago, A.J. Feely almost got cut because he didn't practice well. Thankfully, the Eagles kept him, and he ended up being a pretty good quarterback. But I don't know if practice was boring for him or what, but he just did not practice well. Coaches weren't real keen on him. Coaches have weird things they like, and that shows who plays and who doesn't. Rashad Penny is definitely a more talented runner than Kenny Gainwell, but Kenny Gainwell is a guy they trust. Penny's the guy they don't trust. So we see who gets the football.
But here, now I got to ask this. All right, they don't trust Rashad Penny. They trusted Julio Jones the day he showed up. Boom, right in there, throw him a touchdown pass, week 1. How come Julio Jones garners respect, and he's been with the team about 20 minutes? Rashad Penny's been there all year, and they won't even activate him. Why?
You'd have to sit there and go back and watch what happened in the OTAs and in training camp.
McMullen was there. We'll ask him. Did Rashad Penny take the trust and throw it out the window? Did the Eagles give him the chance to earn the trust in preseason and all those arduous practices they had back in August, Johnny Mac?
Well, I would go to my testament, like, Julio Jones is going to the Hall of Fame. I mean, there's no your questions about Julio Jones are about, does he have anything left physically? That's your question basically about Julio Jones. He's already demonstrated performance, as coaches say. I mean, he's one of the all-time greats.
John, I think you're missing the obvious point here. Jody's crazy because he's comparing Julio Jones and Rashad Penny.
Yeah.
Come on, Jody, those aren't the same guy.
Yeah, Rashad had some nice games, nice stretch of games when he would get hurt. But yeah, I mean, one guy's I just talked about Tyreek Hill. You see what players say about Julio Jones. Lane Johnson, you heard players after the game. They just met the guy. They're in awe of the guy because of what he's done. He's one of those guys. Rashad Penny's not one of those guys. So I would say, but yeah, through the the summer and through the spring, he didn't play well in his opportunities in training camp and joint practices and things like that. And yeah, he never usurped the players he was supposed to usurp, which would be Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell. And to a certain degree, DeAndre Swift. I mean, they came into the season, Kenny Gainwell was the number one back. The Eagles would like people to forget that, but he was the number one back, and he got hurt in Foxborough, got hurt at New England. And then Swift had to play against Minnesota, and he had the great game, and they were forced to go in that direction. If he doesn't get hurt, he's not playing against Minnesota. It would have been Kenny Gainwell.
I'm not sure I'm fully by that, because if you go back to the preseason, you watch the way the Swift made a few plays that made it clear he was the most talented back on the roster.
Oh, I don't deny that. I think they knew he was the most gifted, although you could argue Penny is, depending on what you want, but all around most gifted because he can catch the football and do things like that.
His ability to cut, to burst, to change directions. He's a special runner. Rashad Penny's really a talented player, but Swift,
he's different type of runner.
He's the most gifted. Yeah.
But John's got a point. John's got a point. He didn't play game 2. He comes back, gets 14 carries game 3. They hadn't even completely moved off Gainwell even after the Minnesota game by Swift.
Well,
they gave him a chance the week 3 to come back and go, all right, can you get the job done? And he only had 43 yards on 14 carries.
They may have liked something in the matchups. They wanted him as a receiver. Who knows? You can't just watch one game and say, well, that's what they were going to do for the season, right?
Yeah, but you can lose the job. But what I'm saying is, yeah, if that would have continued, they would have ultimately moved in a different direction. But it wouldn't have been week 2. I mean, they came into the season, Kenny Gainwell was the lead back, and they would have gave him more than one game because they won the game. He didn't play poorly. He was just okay.
Against Patriots.
It's not like he played terribly.
The point I'm making, I guess, is kind of the whole time we thought this was going to be running back by committee, which tells you it's going to be situational. So in this game, we like this guy, and the next game, we like that guy. It's almost like baseball in that sense. Or who hits the left-handers well? Who hits a breaking ball pitcher well? You know, who's hot, who's cold? And we're going to go with that kind of a thing. And listen, if Swift starts struggling, then they're gonna start giving more carries to Gainwell. Gainwell doesn't do anything. They're going to give some touches to Boston Scott. They don't have one workhorse guy. They don't have a Barry Sanders or Emmitt Smith. So you're going to take the group that you have and figure out what's the best way to get the most production out of them.
Well, I would say I understand why you say that, Tommy, because Nick says it all the time, but Nick is blowing smoke up here. You know what? At that point, he wants a lead back. He always has a lead back. He always has had a lead back. Now, he likes the committee approach in the fact that he's not going to give the same guy the football 25 times week after week after week. Although, if he had somebody's capable of doing that, I don't think they look at any of these backs and say, that's one of the things. Swift was getting a lot of touches, and people are saying, got to give him more touches, got to give him more touches. There's a guy who's missed 4 games every year. They're very cognizant of sort of keeping him on a pitch count as well.
He never had 20 carries in a game before this year.
Yeah.
So, and listen, there's no question Nick would love a stud running back. Last year, Miles Sanders had 259 carries, if I remember serves right.
Yeah.
He would love to have a guy to feed the ball to. That guy doesn't exist on the Eagles.
Yeah.
Swift is the most talented runner, but he's not a workhorse. You don't want to have him get hurt and break down. And then Gainwell's a role player. Penny's a role player because he just can't stay healthy. And then Boston Scott's a role player. So if they had an awesome player, they'd be feeding the ball to that guy. They don't have that person, so they have to go running back committee with this group. But yeah, they'd absolutely love a stud running back to feed the ball to.
And we've gone full circle because now I'm going to come back to one game against the Giants. That's the only thing that changed. Up until then, Miles Sanders was a workhorse back, and Kenny Gainwell was a get in there, catch a pass every other possession, Kenny, for one snap. But somehow all of a sudden he became the Eagles' #1 running back. Why? Because of that game against the Giants where Tommy...
No, it wasn't even a game against the Giants. It was because Miles was hurt. That's why. Miles was hurt. Miles
No,
was
going
playing
into
for
this season, he was handed the
going
number
into
one
the
running back
season.
position.
I misinterpreted because I got that like a lot of people said, can he pass Miles? No, he didn't. Miles got hurt.
Right.
Miles got hurt twice. He hurt his knee, then he hurt his hand in the Super Bowl. No, they wanted Miles out there. He was just banged up and hurt, and Kenny did a nice job filling in at times. That's what the Eagles kind of thought. Coming into this year, it's about, they don't have a history with DeAndre Swift. They didn't have a history with Rashad Penny. And Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott were the two guys they trusted, but there's limited upside there. I mean, I think the running back room, and I've been saying this, and DeAndre's play, I think it's overrated by Eagles fans, Tommy. I think it's overrated. I don't think it's that good. I think DeAndre's the best.
It's a two-man room. Boston Scott's doing a your job running back kicks. He never gets the ball from scrimmage. And Rashad Penny can't get in the game to save his life. DNP coaches decision every single week. So it's two guys. They call it a room. It's two guys. It's Swift and Gainwell.
Well, I'm talking about the whole, if guys get banged up, and Boston has a history coming in. Get ready, New York Giants. You
still got 2 months before you get there. They don't play the Giants for January.
But they trust Boston. I don't know if they trust Rashad at all, but if DeAndre gets hurt at some point, and he's, as I said, he's missed 4 games each year, then you're going to see Rashad Penny. So I am including the whole room. But if I said talent-wise, where would you put this room? Like the defensive front I always talk about. It's best defensive front in football. Offensive line, when they're healthy, it's in the conversation. If it's not 1, it's 2 or 3. Running back room for the Eagles, it's not top 16. I would say it's bottom half of the league. Where would you put it, Tommy?
That's fair. Yeah, absolutely. There's no question that they don't have. They got too many role players, and role players are great, but you need role players to fit around the big guy, the key guy. And it really feels like you wish Kenny Gainwell was a good kick returner, because it feels like he and Boston Scott, if you could combine them into one player and then elevate Penny or go get another running back who has starting capability, but you don't want Kenny Gainwell as your flat out starter. You don't want Boston Scott as your flat out starter. Those are both role player backups, and have both of them active with DeAndre Swift is just not ideal. So that's where you wish that you could have either Gainwell or Scott, and then a third player, whether that's Rashad Penny or someone else. That would be a group that I would like better.
Tommy, couple quickies on the Cowboys before we let you run. I'm sure you saw what Michael Parsons said yesterday on his podcast or whatever. He implored Cowboy Nation to take over Lincoln Financial Field. Now, I ask John this every week when the Eagles have a road game. Give me the percentage. How many Eagle fans were in the house? It sounded like 50-50. And they are one of the most outstanding traveling fan bases. The Cowboys have fans everywhere, good, bad, or indifferent. They have fans everywhere, and some of them are well-heeled. Will you even be able to pick up the Cowboy presence from the fan base in Sunday's game at Lincoln Financial?
No, listen, I don't know what it'll be, 5%, 3%.
Yeah, there'll be little pockets of them.
Yeah, there'll be those fans there, because there are Cowboy fans. If you go to Antarctica and cut into an iceberg, there's a Dallas Cowboy fan down there, right?
And someone else going like this with a Cowboys suck t-shirt. They're the most loved team and they're the most hated team. They win both contests in the National Football League.
The guy down there is clinging to a videotape of their last win over the Steelers in the Super Bowl. So, there's going to be some fans there, no doubt. But taking over Lincoln, that ain't going to happen. Listen, if this was an awful Eagles team, if this Eagles team was 1-6, we could see, all right, that might be a different scenario. But 7-1 Eagles, no, heck no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, not going to happen. But there will be more I will say this: there will be more Cowboy fans than most visiting teams. I will say that.
No doubt.
Yeah,
they are a big following nationally, and that includes here in Philadelphia. All right, last thing. Dak Prescott has beaten the Eagles 8 out of 10 times he started and played more than half of the game. That's 8-2. That's pretty damn impressive. Dak hasn't been able to get over the playoff hump, and Eagle fans rightfully like to acknowledge that. But he has gotten the better of the Eagles a lot in his years in the National Football League, including against Coach Sirianni since he took over. What do they have to do to stop Dak?
They've got to stop Dallas's run, and they've got to force Dak to beat him and see if he can do that. And then on offense, the Eagles have to run the ball well. You know, Dallas has 3 losses this year. 2 of the losses were San Francisco and Arizona, and they ran for 392 yards in those games combined.
Wow.
So if you can run the ball in Dallas, you can score on them. And this is
Kenny Gainwell to the rescue. Yeah.
Kenny Gainwell's going to have 35 carries for 218 yards and 7 touchdowns. Now, so they need to run the ball well, whether it's Gainwell or Swift, or maybe Boston Scott has his crazy game of the year. Maybe Jalen Hurts runs, even with that bad knee, whatever it is. They need to be able to run the football, and we know they'll make some plays in the pass game. And
I liked what Michael Irvin said. This game's about 11s. Micah Parsons versus A.J. Brown.
There you
if
go.
Micah gets home, Cowboys are going to have a good night. If he doesn't, A.J.'s going to kill the Cowboys. I like that thought process.
That's a great way to put it. Having Lane Johnson back is a game changer because he can deal with Micah Parsons. If you didn't have Lane Johnson back,
it'd
be really nervous. And Dallas is only 3-2 on the road this year, or 2-2 on the road this year. So they've not been a great road team. So this is gonna be a tough game for them. But yeah, it's not gonna be easy for either team. That the Eagles have to play well to win this game, and both teams are gonna be highly motivated. Hopefully, at the very least, it'll be a highly entertaining game.
And it's not my NFL anymore. When you got 11 on 11, and it's a wide receiver, and a pass rushing outside linebacker. What the hell? Quarterbacks are supposed to be 11, not wide receivers and pass rushing outside linebackers. The game has changed, but we try and keep it moving forward. Tommy Lawler, you always do that when you jump in with us. Check out his website, Eagles fans, Eagles Blitz, IGGLES Blitz.com for Tommy's posts leading up to and after every single game. Tommy, thanks for jumping in today.
Great to talk to you guys.
Thanks, Tommy.
Tommy Lawler here with us on Birds.
By the way, quick story on that 11 thing. I was watching, I guess it was Penn State, Ohio State, and I rarely watch pregame shows, but I happened to catch a pregame. They were doing a story on number 11 at Penn State, and they're talking about how revered it is and how the long and storied tradition. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't remember Ham or Lambert wearing 11 or something. It started with LeVar Arrington. I'm like, that's not long and storied.
They really
Navarro
went there.
Bowman, Micah Parsons. I'm like, yeah, they were talking about the tradition. And I'm thinking to myself, did Lambert wear? I don't think Lambert. I'm trying to think of all the great linebackers.
No.
Even Paul Posluszny. I'm like, I think he was 44. I asked Kerr. He's a Penn State guy.
Right.
I'm like, what are they talking about? Long and storied.
Yeah,
you got to go back farther than LeVar Arrington. It was a hell of a player, but come on.
A little bit of an overstatement, long and storied. No,
Yeah.
and there's a reason why they call Penn State U. Like you'd say, all the way back to Lambert, linebacker U.
Yeah.
They not all of them were 11, not long and storied. That's for damn sure. All right, Mac and Mac, I'll take quick time out. We got our boy Dave Zangaro jumping in, and now about 15 minutes. J Mac and I will come back in just a sec here on Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grosinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grosinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
EAGLES, Eagles.
He's Jack McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. That makes this a Mac Birds 365 get together here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Got a bunch of people streaming today. Thank you very much for doing so. Now, we all know you love John McMullen, so just go ahead and hit the like button now. You can do that. It's Halloween. How about a treat instead of a trick for your boys Mac and Mac today? Hit the like button. Help us out with our what is it called again?
Algorithm.
Algorithm. Don't understand all this YouTube stuff. I just understand football. Here's one thing I understand about football, Johnny Mac. A team that at least in the last week or so, I think is kind of flown under the radar. And one of the reasons I'm bringing this up is because I got a wise guy. There's another word that I would like to use. 3 letters. First one's A. The second and third might be S. Wise guy who hit me with a tweet during my show on CBS the other day. When the Seattle Seahawks were losing, and you said the Seahawks are a good team. And, of course, the Seahawks rallied and won. And I tweeted back to the guy, said, yeah, I did. Check the score. The Seahawks are 5-2. The team in first place in the NFC West right now is the Seattle Seahawks. It's not the San Francisco 49ers. So when the season started, I said, Philadelphia, San Francisco, drop-off. That I thought the separation. Most people had Philly, San Francisco, Dallas, then the drop-off. I didn't even have Dallas as number 3, and I had the big drop-off after 2 and 3. And the 49ers are having issues with 3 losses at this stage. I'm not sure what's up with them right now. But Seattle's ahead of them. And Seattle doesn't put up style points and don't win by 40 points, and they don't have a true candidate for MVP conversation or offensive player of the year or whatever else. They added a nice piece yesterday. They got Leonard Williams from the Giants. You get to see Leonard Williams play all the time these last couple of years. I got to know him when he was a Jet before he was a Giant. Leonard Williams is one of the better defensive tackles in the National Football League. They got him for a 2nd and a future 5th. That's a nice addition for the Seattle Seahawks. They're still on the Eagles' schedule yet to come. The Eagles have to go out to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Seahawks are legit in the mix. People are talking up the Lions because they got an easy schedule. Had a big win last night. Talking about the Cowboys because they only have 2 losses. The Seattle Seahawks only have 2 losses too. They've actually got 6 wins as compared to the Cowboys who already got their buy-in. Excuse me, they got 5 losses as well. The Seahawks are flying under the radar, J-Mac.
Yeah, they are. They a lot of times there, even during the glory days of Russell Wilson when they were going, should have won back-to-back Super Bowls. You know, they're so far out there, nobody pays attention to them. But yeah, they're a good team. You know, this is one of my problems with the modern sports world, not just the NFL. Like I saw a lot of criticism for them giving up a second-round pick for Leonard because he makes. You know, now the Giants paid most of the money.
Paid all the salary.
Yeah. So essentially they're paying for, you know, a second-round pick, the Giants. And, you know, the percent, well, the Seattle's not going to win anything. They're getting a player who's going to be there for 10 games, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what do you mean? As you just explained. Now, are they the favorites? No. But they're in the mix. I don't get this. Oh, woe was me. No, they can't beat the Eagles. They can't beat the Cowboys. They can't beat the 49ers. They're already ahead of the 49ers. You don't know who's going to get hurt. You know, Minnesota wasn't counting on Kirk Cousins tearing his Achilles. Guys played 100 million straight games, except for the one Kobe game. Atlanta wasn't counting on Grady Jarrett tearing his ACL. You don't know what's going to happen. The reason you said, I don't know what's happened to San Francisco. I know what's happened. They lost Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams, and Christian McCaffrey played, but was a little bit banged up. If those guys are healthy, they're so good.
Here's a problem with that, John. Their defense has folded up tent and gone home the last 2 weeks. They don't have any injuries on defense. What happened to the vaunted best defense in football, 49ers? That's what I meant by I don't know what the hell's happening out there.
Steve,
you got explanations for me as to why the 49ers defense can be beat like a drum these last 2 weeks?
I didn't see last week's game. They didn't get beat like a drum. I did see the Minnesota game. It was on Monday night. They were fine. I mean, they lost the game, but they lost the game because Deebo wasn't there and Trent wasn't there. The defense.
And Kirk threw for 300 against them. They're supposed
to. Yeah, but
best.
I mean, he throws for 300 against everybody. It's an offensive league, and when you have a I say it all the time. When you have a quarterback who can throw the football, either you get to him or you're going to get got. I mean, they had the one corner, Brett Ward, sticky, like he intercepted one pass. Him and Addison went back. That was the game where he stole one from Addison and Addison stole one from him. He had good coverage. I just think sometimes in the modern NFL, even the good defenses have bad games because my overriding point is I think San Francisco is going to be fine if they get those guys back. But even further, where I started with the Seahawks, yes, they should try to win, you losers. Because you think, and I'm not talking about everybody, but because you have this whole group of people that think they know and they can't beat the Eagles or they can't beat the Cowboys or they can't beat the 49ers. No, you don't know. You don't know. And they're in a position to take advantage and have a nice run. If they can get the run going, why not try to add a difference maker? I applaud them. I applaud them for doing that.
Leonard Williams is a potential difference maker. There's not going to be all that many. Contavious Street is not going to be a difference maker for the Falcons. He'll be a piece. He'll be a solid guy, not a difference maker. Leonard Williams could be a difference maker. There aren't that many difference makers that are dealt at this time of the year. We like to talk about it. We like to throw Patrick Surtain's name around there. I'll make a prediction that 6 hours from now, Patrick Surtain is still a Denver Bronco.
But do you get that? Because I get that all the time. Oh, they shouldn't do that. They're not in a position. Who's deciding they're not in a position? They're winning games.
Here would be my question to the person who makes that point to me. Who is in the position? How many teams, since you've got the exact right read on teams that are or aren't worthy of making a play this year, how many teams you got in? 2? Eagles, Chiefs,
always,
that's it?
It's
That's
always
all you're counting in at this stage?
It's always 2 or 3, and everybody else should be losing on purpose.
Yeah, please, tank. Do
Yeah.
the Tankapalooza thing. You should be a seller. No, that's not the way that the leagues are run and should be run these days. And I'm just noting that Seattle, by record, by accomplishment, and by their actions yesterday, stamped themselves as a team that is in. And I think they're rightfully doing it because their record says they should be. They've only got 2 losses so far this year, and we've already whittled down that many teams. There aren't that many left that only have 2 losses. All right, one other question I wanted to hit you before we go to break, because this, again, I make too much of this. It just makes me nuts. But I do have to position this correctly, because when I talk about it on the show where I got phones and calls and everything else, and we get some streaming guys. Last year, I brought it to everyone's attention, and I wasn't the only one. The ESPN Power Index. Everybody's got their power ratings. They'll all come out today. ESPN, because all you got to do is punch numbers into a computer, can do it as soon as the Monday Night Football game is over, and they did sometime last night. And last year, the Cowboys continued to be listed ahead of the Eagles in weeks when the Eagles were undefeated and the only one-loss team and blah, 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 blah. And people made a big deal about it. It's Cowboy-centric. They put in Dallas Cowboy numbers. It's all about the Dallas Cowboys. It really isn't. It just makes no sense whatsoever. It's just their computer must have a virus or something, because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Their rankings don't move. They've been the same for like 4 weeks now. Buffalo Bills and their 3 losses are still number 1. The Chiefs, despite an embarrassment losing to the Broncos this past week, a team they hadn't lost to in years, still number 2. The Dolphins, who the Eagles shut down 2 weeks ago, still number 3. The 49ers, who have lost 3 straight games, fear not, you're still number 4. The Ravens, at least you got a team that's playing well, number 5. The Dallas Cowboys, number 6. And the Philadelphia Eagles, number 7. Now, these have been the ratings for like the last several weeks.
Yeah.
And it hasn't changed at all. What numbers are they looking at, Johnny Mac? What are they pumping into a computer that gives them the same bad rankings week in and week out?
Well, all these things, and this is why I don't get even remotely upset about these things. All these things are flawed. They do the best they can. They're not doing it like a person. Like you'll say, like if you look at PFF today, Miami's still number 1. Well, the Eagles beat Miami. Why aren't the Eagles number 1? That's sort of how a fan thinks about it. They're just grading individual games and using the best grades to determine the best team. Well, it's an unbalanced league. There's 32 teams. They all don't play each other. So you don't even get from a standpoint, forget about week to week and who's playing and who's injured and who's not injured. They don't even play everybody. So it's all flawed. And from the standpoint of football power indexes or film, or guess what? If you're playing the New York Giants this year, who are the 32nd team, you're probably going to look pretty good. And that's going to skew your grades for 1 week. If you're San Francisco and we were just talking about, and Joe Burrow finally gets hot the week after Kirk Cousins is hot, you're going to look pretty bad for a couple weeks defensively. That's the way it works. I mean, it's an unbalanced league, and that's why everybody's power rankings, including my own, should rest in the circular file the minute someone says them. They're meaningless. Right. Style points don't matter. We say it all the time. The Eagles, for what are we? 18 plus 8, 26 consecutive regular season weeks have been either the NFL's best team record-wise or tied for the best team. That's all that matters.
Agreed, but with every passing week, you've got more data to input. You should be getting closer to reality, and for some reason, the ESPN computer seems to be
By the way,
I get it. 2 games in, 4 games in, 6 games in, unbalanced schedule. You can have variations. You can see where it doesn't compute complete. We're up to now 8 games played. Yeah, it's got
I'm looking at PFF since I just brought it up. They have 2 3-loss teams ahead of the Eagles. 2. Miami's number 1 still. San Francisco's still number 2 with their 3 losses. Baltimore's number 3. Dallas is number 4. Buffalo 5. Eagles 6.
Yeah, so they got the Eagles down too. The ESPN Power Index has them 7th. 7-1. That's the only thing that matters is the standings. Move off the ESPN index page, Joe. Move to the standings page. Best record in the National Football League, Philadelphia Eagles. All right, McDonald and McMullen coming back. We got Dave Zangaro. I see him in our green room. He's ready to join us next. Looking spry, looking chipper, kind of like the Eagles offense this past week. Maybe not like their defense. He looks better than Eagles defense did. Dave Zangaro joins us next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Mac joined by Dave Zangaro from NBC Sports Philly. Always good to get Dave aboard. Pull your hat down a little bit. We got to see the hat. The hat's looking pretty good.
It's a Kona Surf Shop in Wildwood.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Looks brand new.
It's not brand new. It's been beat up a little bit.
Right.
And wait a minute. There's an actual Kona surf shop in Wildwood?
It's been there since the 70s, I believe.
Yeah, sorry about that. Wildwood is great for certain reasons. Kona-like is not one of them, but if they think they're getting away with it, they can go ahead.
Maybe somebody from Kona, Hawaii moved there. You never know, Jody. You never know.
Yeah, I know. That didn't happen. It just if you live in Kona, Hawaii, you're not moving to Wildwood, New Jersey. I'm sorry. I just don't believe that that's actually happened. All right, here's where I want to go with you first, Dave Zingaro. Last night, I was on the air till 3 o'clock in the morning. So at 2 o'clock, I got a Woj bomb. The Philadelphia 76ers had gotten rid of James Harden. 2 o'clock in the morning is when the tweet hit.
That's when you don't want the news. That's when you don't like the trade that you got, by the way. But I digress. Go on.
What do you mean?
You want to drop it at 2 in the morning when you don't want people to say, "Oh,
maybe that's why the Clippers called Morey at 2 a.m. at 1:55. Go, all right, that deal we discussed. Let's put it through. You're right. If I'm the Sixers, I'm trying to get as much attention as possible because I can't believe Morey got what he did. But that's beside the point. Will Dave Zingaro be reporting a Zingaro zap instead of a Woj bomb before 4 o'clock this afternoon as how he got an ace up his sleeve?
I mean, with Howie, he's always very active. So I think it's possible. I do appreciate the 4 p.m. deadline, so I don't have to be up at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that.
2 a.m. for you. That's right.
The Eagles make a trade at 2 a.m. I'm not seeing it until I wake up. I'm just not seeing it. So credit to all the Sixers writers who were somehow awake at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. As far as the Eagles go, I mean, they already had their blockbuster with Contavious Street. So I think there's a chance they're active, but I don't even know if it's like by position. I think position certainly plays a role, but I think it's like player. Like if there's a player that they really like and they think it'll help the team, they'll do it. But I think Howie's also aware that like you don't want to just keep trading away future picks. I thought what he gave up for Byard was perfectly fine. I think you do that 10 out of 10 times, but like to think about them giving up a high draft pick for a player, especially if it's like a rental, probably not.
Yeah. There's been a lot of, because the Eagles like the player coming in, Patrick Surtain talk. Now Jalen Johnson has requested a trade in Chicago. The Eagles corners are aging, outside corners, obviously, but they're still good. They're still rock solid. Are you surprised how much chatter there's been about cornerbacks and how he likes this cornerback, how he likes this cornerback? He did love Surtain, but everybody did.
Yeah, I mean, Surtain is arguably the best corner in the league. So I think if you're a team, like you're not even asking what it would take to get that player.
Yeah.
You're out of your mind.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal. And I think he's 23. So,
yeah.
But like to your point, I think Slay has looked fine this year. I'm starting to just keep my eye on James Bradbury a little bit. He wasn't the quickest corner in the league to begin with. And he hasn't had a great start to his season. So I'm keeping an eye on that. Now the problem is if you trade for a starting corner, like what do you do?
Yeah.
You don't really
better be one who can go into the slot and play. If you're trading, I don't think you.
But that's the point.
You're not revisit the Bradbury to the slot thing. If they went out and got Surtain today, would you play him in the slot or would you play Bradbury in the slot?
You'd probably play Bradbury because he has the familiarity in there in the system, but not ideal. And then you're not maximizing James Bradbury. So that's why it's a tricky thing there. But, if you get a young player like that, you're not trading for this year either. Like, obviously, you're going to play him. He's the best corner in the league. But you're talking about, like, all right, we want this guy for the next decade. But like, I could see them trading for a nickel. I don't think that's out of the question. It's kind of a shame that Bradley Roby got hurt so early. I was kind of thinking they'd have all this time to really get a good look at him and decide whether or not he was the right fit at that nickel spot. And then he hurts his shoulder and he misses the last 2 games. So you lose all this time to evaluate him. That's tricky because I don't know if you have a good read on whether or not he's going to be good enough there. But you did bring him in. He played fairly well that first time you threw him out there. And now it's like, I don't know what they're thinking there. I think if there was a nickel that made sense and was kind of a plug and play guy, they would entertain that.
What are they thinking there, Dave? Because they've used, and I asked James this last week coming into the game in Washington, they've used 8 different slot cornerbacks this year. And I throw Slay in there because he played a couple snaps in there against the Rams. So really 7, but
And that didn't work well.
No, didn't work well. I mean, come on. At some point, you gotta sit on the pod, as they say. You gotta pick somebody. And even last week it's Sidney Brown, and then here's Eli Ricks. And then all of a sudden you start having the problems. There's communication issues. The middle of the field is wide open all day. On one hand, I like Sean decides what he's open-minded. He seems to, I'll try this, I'll try that. I like that. But at some point, you got to make a decision. Hopefully that decision's Roby or insert trade pickup.
Yeah, and I think it would be. But they have injuries. So I agree with your general premise there. Like it's really at the nickel spot and at linebacker, we're seeing a rotation.
Yeah.
Which is 2 spots you don't normally see rotations. So when it works, you give Sean Desai his flowers. When it doesn't work, you go, what the heck are you doing, man? Like you're putting extra stress on the communication. And that's not a great situation to be in. Obviously, losing Avonte Maddox and Zach McPherson so early didn't help things. I don't know why they kept Mario Goodrich around if they weren't going to at least give him a shot to be the guy when Avonte Maddox went down. That was strange roster construction.
Yeah.
In my view, like why even keep him then? It was clear what they were doing in this last game. It was Sidney Brown on early downs and Eli Ricks on nickel downs and passing situations. So they're all nickel situations, but on clear pass on third downs, they were going with Eli Ricks. I thought Sidney gave them something from a physicality standpoint, but obviously he was getting picked apart in the pass game when they were targeting him. I'd rather see Eli Ricks out there. I think they have something in this kid. I don't know long-term if that means he's like a starting caliber player, but I like what I've seen from him. I'd probably play him more in there than I would Sidney right now, but I think the goal has to be to get Roby back or to find another guy to just take that spot.
Since we're talking roster construction and cornerbacks, what does this say about Keely Ringo? Well, John just ran down the list of umpteen individuals they've gotten out there to take some snaps, be it in the slot or wherever else. Keely Ringo never plays for them. All he does is special teams. Otherwise,
Fair
he's
point.
taking space on the sidelines. He was a 4th-round pick. They were very excited about, couldn't believe he dropped to the 4th round. He goes, I think we're seeing the reason that he dropped to the 4th round is maybe he was overrated going into the draft. What do we read on Keely Ringo's inability to get any snaps with the Eagles defense his rookie year?
Yeah, I don't know if overrated is right. I think certainly raw. But that was something we knew. We knew he was a super toolsy project player. I'm not surprised to see some of these guys get reps over him. And look, I don't think Ringo is a fit inside as a nickel because of his body size, his body makeup and his size.
His length.
But
here's where I say that, Dave, because that's where I would go right off the bat. Well, he's an outside corner. But so is Bradbury. They put him inside. Now he's a veteran, so you can leave that. So is Ricks. Ricks is too. Ricks is not a slot corner by frame or body type. He's certainly not hefty. But they tried him, and he's over Ringo, and he's pretty raw. I don't think there should be any panic. I mean, there's no harm in redshirting a rookie in the NFL. We saw it with Cam Jurgens. We saw it with Nakobe Dean. But just because there's been so many injuries and they've used so many bodies and they didn't even give Ringo a chance, I think it's a little bit of what's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ricks has the body to play inside more than Ringo does. I think the concerning thing, if there is a concerning thing, is that I don't know if you noticed this, but when Darius Slay was about to come off the field in the last game for a snap, it was not Ringo or Josh Jobe taking over. It was Eli Ricks. I think they just like Ricks an awful lot. I think it's more about what Ricks is doing. He's clearly overtaken Josh Jobe as the top outside backup at this point. So he's the next guy on the field no matter what. which, he's an undrafted kid. Maybe they found something. I don't know. I put that more on him than Ringo. I get your point, but like we knew when they drafted Keely
No,
Ringo,
yeah,
he
you're
wasn't
right.
ready.
You're right.
So it's like
You're
it
right.
feels revisionist to me at this point to be like, well, why isn't he on the field? Well, because they didn't plan on having him on the field this year.
Well, did they plan on having Ricks on the field this year?
No, but I
Okay,
think he was
cool.
more NFL ready.
But Ringo gets drafted in the 4th round and Ricks is undrafted?
Yeah, because you're not drafting thinking about a spot starter or a spot player in week 7. You're drafting because you think there's upside.
Yeah, you're drafting long term. But I would say the Ricks, and by the way, Ricks
should have got drafted.
Ricks has done a phenomenal job, but not only didn't he get drafted, I think he got 5,000 was his bonus. I think because of his reputation coming into college at LSU, he was at LSU before Alabama. He was a 5-star prospect. A lot of people said he was the top cornerback prospect in the country. Never quite lived up to that hype. But he didn't get drafted, and he got $5,000 as an undrafted. Now Reed got $5,000 and has turned into a heck of a player. So it's not like the NFL doesn't get these things wrong. But those signing bonuses, Dave, they mean something when it comes to undrafted guys. So there were not only teams passing over him in the draft, but saying, we don't think much of this player. So on one hand, I give him a ton of credit for overcoming that. And now he's part of the rotation. He's playing. He's surpassed guys with bigger reputations. On the other hand, I'm like, why? You brought up Goodrich. He had to play against Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp. That's it. That's his chance. And to a certain degree, Josh Joe playing outside. That's it. That's his chance. Are they moving on too quickly from these players that they kept on the roster for a reason?
Yeah, based on what I've seen, yeah. The tricky part about this time of year is we're not at practice. So our evaluation ends with what we see in games and what we saw in training camp, whereas, they're evaluating day to day. And it's just tough for me to say without seeing that, like what they're seeing out there. It's clearly that's part of their evaluation. It's a big part of it that we're just kind of, we're left in the dark on that.
All right, Dave Z, I'm going to make you Harry Roseman for a minute here. We're going to do a little role play. You're in your office and the phone rings at about 3:30, and it's Quincy Adolfo, the general manager of the Minnesota Vikings. And he says, Howie.
Real quick, you're like Leo DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street. You're saying yes, because you're gonna pilfer this guy.
The secretary calls and says, Mr. Mentz on line 1. And I don't know if you feel the need, go ahead and fist bump now. And Quincy tells you, listen, you may have heard, I don't have my quarterback anymore. So I'm looking for a quarterback. And you've got Marcus Mariota, who's a veteran, who's been there, done that, whatever. I'm going to need Marcus and a day 3 pick. We can negotiate 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever round it's going to be. I give you my number 1 pick this upcoming season for Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota and a day 3 pick. Hey, they got a 1st-round pick for Sammy Sleeves a couple of years ago.
Come on.
If Quincy is crazy enough to offer you a 1st-round pick for Marcus Mariota and a day 3, you saying yes, Howie?
If I'm Howie in this,
yeah,
I'll say Hold on. Someone go find Marcus Mariota. Tell them to meet me at my car. We're going to drive to the airport.
Yeah, that's now even I think Quincy's not been very good since he's taken over. But no, and I think there's a lot of dumb GMs in the world. I'll say this. 3rd round. Here's more realistic, Dave. If they offer a 3rd round pick for Marcus Mariota, would Howie do that? Because I don't think he would, because he values the backup quarterback position too much. And he doesn't want, the Vikings are going to start Jaron Hall, who's a 5th round pick this week. He doesn't want to start Tanner McKee if Jalen Hurts sprains an ankle. But that's sort of a first round pick. I mean, yes, third round pick. Would he even consider that type of deal?
It's tough because the quarterback is already hurt.
Yeah,
I mean, he's already hurt.
Yeah.
You're one knee tweak away from needing that backup already. So, it's interesting for a third round pick. If I'm Howie, I would probably do that. I don't know if he would. A third is interesting. A fourth, probably not.
Yeah, I would say it's got to be day two. He would.
Yeah, if it's a day
you
two
got to
pick,
think
that's
about.
really tempting.
You got to think about it.
But I mean, you know how much this team values the quarterback position. Like even if Jalen wasn't already hurt, he's gotten hurt in back-to-back Decembers, and you've had to play your backup. So it's a really important spot. Now, Tanner McKee was better than Marcus Mariota all summer.
Correct.
That does not mean it translates when games are being played. So, like, I think that they would rather have the veteran in there. I know they would rather have the veteran in there. There's a reason he's still number 2. So I don't think he would be willing to trade him unless Jody comes in with that first round pick.
That's why I went as high as I did, to make it debatable.
I don't even think it's debatable. Yeah, they take a first round pick, but that's why I would toned it down to
all right. So now I'll go the other way and I'll play devil's advocate. What happens if they take the first round pick and Jalen Hurts goes down and Tanner McKee can't play? Does Howie Roseman come under severe criticism?
Well,
I don't know if severe. I think everyone would understand the situation if you get a first round pick. He might be kicking himself a little bit because they can win this year. But
because I can speak to what it's like to have a good team and not have a quarterback. I'm a Jets fan. It's a problem. If you don't have a quarterback you trust, you got a damn good team, and you think you can win because the Jets have a phenomenal defense and beat the Eagles, you get a little unnerved when your quarterback can't make plays. So if the Eagles don't go to the Super Bowl because Jalen Hurts got hurt and Tanner McKee is their quarterback, if Tanner plays poorly, Howie should definitely be, even if he's blown away by a first-round draft pick offer, he's rolling the dice a little bit if he makes that trade.
That first round pick.
I think any GM in the league takes that first round pick.
Yeah. Now, third round, I seriously think about it, but I probably beg off because I'm a Super Bowl contender.
And also, I don't know if any teams are like clamoring to get Marcus Mariota.
No, I don't. You might Jameis Winston. Would the Saints take a third round pick for
the Vikings? Should sign Carson Wentz.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. I talked about that yesterday. Nobody talks about Carson Wentz. It's one of the great downfalls in history. I want a Dave Zangaro book about that. This kid, Carson Wentz, was a tremendous player. I think people forget that. It's rare that you reach those heights and you fall that precipitously so quickly. And it's not just injuries. There was it's like a big cocktail of, well, we know the story. I don't want to re-legislate it, but have you ever seen anything like it, Dave?
It's unique. His whole career was unique. And it's like people forget, people think it was only 2017. It wasn't. I mean, he was okay the next year. And in 2019, he takes him to the playoffs.
Yeah.
If his head doesn't get slammed against the ground by Jadeveon Clowney, like the whole trajectory of the franchise could be different.
I'll explain to both you guys, and Johnny Mac should get this because he's a baseball wonk like me. 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Eagles, Colts, Commanders. See ya. You're out. I'm sorry. I don't care how great he was in 2017, which is now a while ago, 6 years ago. Yeah, he was an MVP candidate. It may have been the leader.
But as Dave pointed out, it wasn't just 2017. He, that was his apex, but he was still a good quarterback in 2018, 2019. And yeah, obviously it went down from there. But you're talking about a week where you're going to see Clayton Tune and Jaron Hall start NFL games. Who the hell was playing quarterback for the Giants last week? What's his name?
DeVito, Tommy DeVito.
Tommy DeVito. Carson Wentz can't get a job. It's amazing to me.
The unknown of those three individuals you just threw out there outweighs the known of Carson Wentz. You can disagree with it, but that's the way the NFL looks at it right now.
I didn't want to
unknown better
Carson
than
Wentz.
known, which isn't good enough.
All right, back to this team. One player I want to talk to you about, Dave, is Nakobe Dean. Boy, he was not good in pass coverage in Washington. Disastrous, I might even say. There's been talk about how he's looking at linebackers as well. And Nicholas Morrow's played well. Now, I didn't expect it, but if the NFL's a meritocracy, why is Nakobe Dean getting more reps than Nicholas Morrow right now?
Yeah, it's a fair question. The rotation to me just doesn't make sense. And I like that Sean Desai plays all these guys and it gets them ready for the game and they're involved, but you're switching out Mike linebackers.
Yeah.
And in this game, it wasn't even the previous game. It was Zach Cunningham plays every snap, and then Morrow and Nakobe split up the mic. This week we saw Morrow and Nakobe out there together. So it's really just mixing and matching. When you're already mixing and matching up front, now you're moving around. You have been mixing and matching in the secondary with safety before this week, and then with the nickel spot, you're playing a ton of zone coverage. Your spacing is all out of whack. It makes it really tricky. I agree with you on Nakobe not playing well. Maybe it's my selfishness because I've waited so long to see Nakobe Dean play football. I just want to see him play. I want to see him just be the Mike linebacker, see what he has. And look, if he's really not good enough, then you change it. But I mean, we haven't seen that yet. I just want to see Nakobe Dean play football. And maybe that's foolish because maybe he hasn't earned it. Maybe I'm watching his college tape and thinking of that too much, but I just want to see the kid play.
Here's another guy that I want to question, and let me get on the record. He gets a complete pass for this past week for me. But the way I evaluate him going into this week against Dallas may change a little bit because it was disappointing. Kevin Byard, everybody loved the deal, didn't give up a lot to get him, former Pro Bowler. He did not play well the other day. Do we give him just a complete pass because they threw him in there 5 days, figure everything out, learn the system, communicate with your teammates? Just a little bit too much to have him take every snap on defense? Or do we get to evaluate him this week and say, all right, you had practice, you had all those valuable walkthrough minutes that you guys had. Time for you to show up as a better version of Kevin Byard than I got his first week in an Eagle uniform.
Yeah, I'm not going to kill him for not playing well in those circumstances. And like I mentioned, when we're talking about a team that runs zone coverages like that, for a safety, he has to kind of feel out where everyone is on the field. And then it was just wonky because you can tell these guys haven't played together. It's going to take some time. That's just part of it. He's going to figure that out. I still think he's going to be a really good player. I couldn't believe how accountable and how honest he was post-game about his play and the play of the secondary. It's very rare that I leave the locker room after a game with a story that I didn't expect. For the most part, what the news is, right? You know what happened in the game. You're trying to find out exactly the inner workings of what happened. But he just stood there and said it wasn't good enough, and no excuses for me, no excuses for the secondary. We have to play better. He talked about accountability and watching tape better and practicing better. And I was really impressed by that. I think it's a tricky thing sometimes for a veteran to walk into a new locker room and become a leader immediately. It's a tricky thing because this is a team that has leaders. I mean, they have 3 defensive captains. They have guys who have been here a long time, but he wasn't tiptoeing around it. He was making his presence felt. I think he's going to be a good player. I'm not too concerned about him. Not that you give him a complete pass, but look, he got here on Tuesday and played 72 snaps.
Played the whole game
on Sunday,
which I was expecting, by the way. Yeah, and I do give him a complete pass for a lot of those reasons, and everything I've heard about Kevin is just, he's a 5-time team captain down there. We were talking to our old buddy Teron Davenport. He was like, this guy's just, he'll talk about everything. He's a leader. But you're right, when it comes to fitting into a new locker room, people, tend to take a step back. They don't want to seize that role. But I think he's going to earn it because that's just the type of guy he is. And he's a really good player. And I think as soon as he learns the defense, everything's going to be fine. So, I'm going to give him a complete pass and say, all right, he only had 5 days to get ready, a couple practices, Wednesday walkthrough. But I want to, and we started with Howie. I'll end it with Howie with you, Dave, because it's his day at D Zangaro NBCS. Follow Dave on Twitter, X, whatever you like to call it these days. NBC Sports Philadelphia does a tremendous job there. After the Miami game, it was great, right? Miami's averaging 500 yards, 37 points. The Eagles give them 244. The defense gives up 10. And Howie's like, nope, we're not good enough. I'm going to go get Kevin Byard. This week, it's the exact opposite. They look like the worst back seven in the history of football against Sam Howell and the Commanders. Is he going to overreact to that, or is he just honest? And to me, that's his strength. He's honest about what he has and what he doesn't have. And he's not going to be an EKG. Oh, we played poorly. I got to go do this. Is that your feel for Howie?
Yeah, I don't think the two results of the game change in any way his strategy. If there had been an injury, then I think that would certainly spur action. If there was a major injury at a position where they really value it, like that could make him pull the trigger on a trade. But like the individual results from where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, how you value positions going into this. Maybe the Miami game just showed him like, okay, yeah, we're still really good. We should go all in. Like maybe it's something like that, but I don't expect him to overreact to this Washington game. I don't think we really it's a weird deal. Like this Bieniemy offense gives him fits.
Yeah, that was a good game plan. That was a great game plan.
It was a great game plan. They ran it really well. Sam Howell played well. You tip your cap a little bit. I don't think it changes the outlook of this team at all.
All right, Dave Z, I need a prediction from you, and it might be a prediction that could swing the balance of power in this Sunday's game against the Cowboys. Will Brandon Aubrey miss his first field goal in his NFL career? Friggin' guys, 18 for 18 so far. The best start an NFL kicker has ever had in his career, and he's a Dallas Cowboy, and he's coming to Philadelphia this week. Will he miss a field goal?
I got to check the weather report.
Yeah, the weather. That's what I was doing.
Northeast weather, and it's Sunday afternoon, late game, so you might get some swirling wind down there.
Right.
Yeah, the open end of the stadium's a problem, according to Jake Elliott.
It's possible. He gets to kick in that dome all the time, so I think it's definitely in the realm of possibility.
18 for 18 goes by the boards against the Eagles on Sunday. Hopefully that's the case. Dave Z, always a pleasure, brother. Appreciate the hat, even though there's no shades of Hawaii down in Wildwood. It's a pretty cool looking hat. I'll give you that much.
It's an ocean. It's a shade. There's an ocean.
Yeah, the Atlantic's not quite the Pacific either,
No,
but
it's
that's a whole nother thing. Zangaro, always a pleasure, bud. Thank you very much for hopping in with us, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
guys.
Dave Zangaro, NBC Sports Philadelphia.
It's going to be 67 on Sunday and sunny, but it's going down to 45. So as it gets darker, never know.
And I got to take a mea culpa on this one. 3 things that I question with the Cowboys during the offseason. I think people just passed over evaluating them coming into the year. The fact that they lost their tight end. The kid stepping in at tight end, Ferguson's been pretty good. I didn't know if he was going to be as good. I knew that Schoonmaker wasn't ready to step in and they used a second-round pick on him. He hadn't done diddly squad, but better at tight end than I thought. I really questioned whether a USFL kicker kicking in empty stadiums was going to be able to come in and kick field goals in a National Football League. The guy's made 18 in a row. So I ate crow on that one. I still question whether Mike McCarthy can call plays. We'll see what he does this week. John Desai didn't have a great week this last week. Jody McDonald's opinion. You got out chess maneuvered by the Washington offense coordinator badly. You can't let that happen this week with Mike McCarthy. You just can't. I'm a McCarthy. Okay, people hate him. They're a lousy coach. I don't think he's a bad coach. I think he's a pretty good head coach. I never thought he was a good play caller, and he's had a modicum of success this year with Dallas. We can go through every single game and dissect it and pick it apart. The Eagles need to get the better of that matchup this week. Their defense against the Cowboy offense. Otherwise, I'm going to be 0 for 3, and I'm going to have to eat some really big.
The Cowboys are. We're going to talk about it all week, but the Cowboys are better than Eagles fans give them credit for. Is how I would describe them. They're a very talented group. When they play well, where I would say the Eagles have an advantage, and the Eagles are more well-rounded, and they tend to find ways to win. The Cowboys, when they bring their A game, are very, very difficult to deal with. But, they also have some stinkers thrown in there. And
right.
When they have those stinkers, everybody has stinkers. But when they have those stinkers, they don't find ways to get over the hump. Eagles do.
No, they wouldn't. Both of the games they've lost this year, they've lost pretty badly to both the Cardinals and the 49ers. All right, Mac and Mac coming back, put a bow on the show. Keep it here on Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grosinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grosinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
EAGLES, Eagles.
All right, running out of time here on a Tuesday edition of Birds 365, a Halloween edition of Birds 365, a trade deadline day edition of Birds 365. So, Johnny Mac, yay or nay? Next 6 hours, Howie Roseman got another deal to do?
I'm gonna go yay, but I think it's gonna be a lesser deal. I don't think we're gonna see the big splash deal. So I'm gonna go.
A player coming in who can help the team, not yesterday, which was a subtract.
It might be a player going out.
Clinging to that Derek Barnett thing.
It might be a player.
They can't get anything for that guy.
No, I'm not talking about.
They can't even get what they got Contavious Street, which was a move up of 1 round. They won't even get that for Derek Barnett.
Well, I always say people said they couldn't get something for Jalen Reagor. They get something for everybody. There's a lot of bad GMs. I said yesterday, I don't even know if they want to trade Derek Barnett because of what they value their defensive front. But similar to the what we talked about with Street Ajomo, you have somebody maybe you want to open up some space for Nolan Smith, or maybe you don't. We just talked about Calais Ringo. Nolan hasn't been great in his limited reps either. So who knows? But overall, I would say no splash, but maybe a mid-level sort of type of deal.
Whatever Howie Roseman does today, we'll be back tomorrow to talk about it right here on Birds 365. You back with me in 22, Johnny Mac?
Planning on it. Let's see what Howie does,
Will it be a trick or a treat by the Eagles general manager? We'll be back to talk about it here on Birds 365. Bill Colarulo going to be talking about it coming up next on the Philly Sports Power Hour right here on the JAKIB Media YouTube station. Mac and Mac back in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.